Jamie Vaughn, and I have lived in Reno for all my life. I've moved in and out of Reno a few times, but I was back here by the time I was 21 and have been here ever since. So I know the community really well. I did not know the cancer community at all before I was diagnosed with breast cancer on June 11th of 2022, literally 1 week after I retired from the school district. And I had a wonderful retirement party, and I was so excited. I have all kinds of plans for retirement, and wham, I got my mammogram the Tuesday after the party, and I knew that I had stage 2, it was HER2 positive, estrogen and progesterone negative breast cancer by that Saturday at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was sitting at Prosser camping with my family. So that threw me into quite a whirlwind, and I realized right off the bat there was so much I did not know. But I did know a lot about breast cancer because I had friends who had breast cancer and all the things, which we probably all have been touched by breast cancer in some way. But I realized very quickly there was so much I did not know. That being said, I went through all of the treatments. I went through chemo. I didn't have to do radiation, which they pulled lymph nodes, and I didn't have any, there was no reason to do it. But I had a double mastectomy reconstruction in New Orleans at Center for Restorative Breast Surgery, called the deep flap surgery. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of, has anybody never heard of deep flap surgery? Okay, yeah, so it was amazing because when I found out about it, and I asked people, so many people didn't know. One of the reasons is because in our community, there's no specialist who does that in our community. So I thought I was going down the implant road, which I didn't want to do, and I don't have anything against it or anything like that. I just personally didn't want to do that. So I was very lucky to have 3 separate friends come to me at different times of my treatment to tell me, oh, I had a friend who went to New Orleans or went whatever and had this surgery where they take your tissue from your body and they reconstruct your breast. I'm like, what? And so these are things that I did not know, and I wished I would have known, because it just sort of, I had to make a real quick decision at the very last minute after chemo. I had my chemo before the surgery. It's the type of cancer that I had that was the best thing for me to do. And so I had to make a real quick decision and cancel my surgery here in Reno and go to New Orleans and get this surgery, and it was the best thing I could have done. I hope that someday they have a microplastic surgeon here in Reno to be able to offer that to other people in our community so people don't have to travel. So I went through all the things, all the emotional stuff, anger, fear, just everything. And I remember from the very beginning of the diagnosis, I had a friend of mine that says, oh, you just wait, Jamie. You're about to embark on the sisterhood of all sisterhoods. And at the time, I thought, okay, whatever. And now that I am almost 2 years out from my diagnosis in June, right? I realize it is so true. But there's also a brotherhood out there. And I did not know that men could get breast cancer. And so I'm very adamant about helping, saying people who get breast cancer. Because if you have breasts, you can get breast cancer. So there's so many things that I learned. A year ago, February, it was right after my first breast surgery. I had gone, you would think, and I was disease free, and you would think that I would be, yay, back to normal, everything's great, we're gonna start doing all the things. And come to find out that's just not how it works for a lot of people. We do have a little PTSD in our survivorship, and it's very normal. So it's not just you have cancer, you get it out, and then you get on with your life and everything's great. There's a lot of support that comes with that, and by that I mean community support. one of the things that I learned very quickly is that there's a lot of support out in our community. You know, Nevada Cancer Coalition, Cancer Community Clubhouse, and some people are kind of afraid to reach out to those community members or don't really understand them, but they really are important to connect to, because you meet a lot of people who have had cancer, any kind of cancer, and we find that there are, you know, a lot of similarities in what we go through. And talking to people who have been in that situation is very helpful because they get it. They understand, and I found that a lot of my friends who had never been in that situation, or even family members, it was really difficult to talk to them because they just didn't get it. I mean, I literally had one of my brothers tell me that, oh my gosh, you're so lucky you get to go and get your 20-year-old boobs back. Or, you know, maybe better than what you had when you were 20. I'm like, no. So I don't talk to people like that when it comes to those things, because I thought it was really inappropriate. And he did apologize to me just when I set him straight, because I'm pretty open about that. I have boundaries. So a year ago in February, I really was struggling. I was depressed. I was feeling like I had no significance. I felt like I had no purpose in this world. And you would think that I would, but I realized that before I got breast cancer, I had a lot of purpose. I had a lot of kids that I taught. I had a side job. I had a side business. I had a podcast that was going to help educators become better educators. So I had a lot of purpose, a lot of significance. And I felt that about myself. But at this time in February last year, I did not. And my husband couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. Finally, I realized it's because I'm not working anymore. I'm in retirement. I'm going into my second year I'm in my second year of retirement, or I was still in my first year, and with nothing to do. And so that's when the podcast, Test Those Breasts, was born. And I was sitting in the hot tub with my husband, and I'm like, babe, a podcast. I know how to podcast. People always say to people who have cancer or went through cancer, oh, you should write a book. I'm like, no, I don't want to write a book. I don't want to write a book. It's just not something I want to do. But I know how to talk. I know how to have conversations with people. I know how to empathize with people. I know how to connect people. And I know how to podcast. So that's what I started. And my husband came up with the name. Why? Because it's so important to test your breasts. Every single year, or if you feel something or see something that's abnormal, it's important to test your breasts. And I've been doing this since I was in my early 40s. I started getting ultrasounds with my mammograms because I have dense breast tissue. How many of you have dense breast tissue? Anybody? Most women do. The younger women, and then as we get older, they become less dense from what I've learned. Didn't know that before. But it's like finding a snowflake in a snowstorm. That's why you need to ask to get an ultrasound too. So one of the target audiences I have are people who've never been diagnosed with breast cancer. And a lot of people say, well, why would you do that? I mean, they don't have breast cancer, it's not even on their radar. And my response to that is that it needs to be on your radar. And so I really have to convince people of that, because sometimes when you're talking to people who have breast cancer, you're sort of preaching to the choir in a sense. I mean, we do learn a lot, even when we've had it. I still am learning something every single day from the interviews that I have on the podcast. I interview surgeons and oncologists and radiologists and other therapists, my own therapist. I interview other survivors, and every time I close that computer after an interview, I'm like, holy cow, I didn't even know that. And so I learn. But people, I wish that I would have gone into this whole situation knowing so much more. And so that we're talking about peer-to-peer. talking to other people. If you know somebody in your family or friend, please do them a favor and do yourself a favor and learn about it. Listen to podcasts, read books, read articles, get involved in the community, because at some point in time everyone is going to be affected in some way with cancer. And so the podcast is, I'm really excited about it. Tomorrow, I'm releasing my 49th episode. I launched it last June, so it hasn't even been a year yet. And it was on June 11, which was the 1-year anniversary of my diagnosis. I thought that was appropriate. And so I release every single week, and I am constantly connecting with people all over the world, actually. I'm just about to interview a gal she's a medical oncologist who's had breast cancer 3 times. She's going to be interviewing with me, but all kinds of people, to be able to educate you and all the other people. I've had people who've reached out to me from Australia to tell me that they ran across my podcast and they were wanting to connect me with their 32-year-old sister who's in India who just was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I've gotten on Zoom with them. I don't sell anything, I educate and bring awareness through other people. So just recently I received a letter from the IRS telling me that my nonprofit has been approved. Thank you, I'm excited. I can't believe I'm even doing this. And my intention is to use the funds to keep the podcast going, because it's all been self-funded out of my really, really robust retirement fund. And so I need help, and I've gotten some donations from friends and family and things like that through Buy Me a Coffee and things like that. But I also do want to take part of those funds and create a monthly gift to a breast cancer patient. Possibly they need to pay their mortgage, maybe they want to get nipple tattoos, maybe for the rest of their restoration of their breasts, or maybe they want to go, maybe their insurance doesn't pay enough for the surgery. And there will be an application process, and my 3 board members will be the deciders. So that's where I'm planning on going with it. So that is my story. I just really encourage people to really reach out to the community to help them, because it's not just about the cancer inside you, it's about your mental health. And it is the sisterhood and brotherhood of all hoods. It really is. And I've met, and the silver linings are abound. I've met the most amazing people. Some of the folks in this room, I've met the most amazing people that I didn't, I'm happy. You wouldn't think that I would necessarily be happy, but I really am happy. And, but I do have those struggles in my survivorship still. I still have that sometimes depression and little PTSD and things like that, but that's my story.
Yes, questions?
Questions?
Please, questions.
Yes.
Is your podcast on all streaming services?
It's on all streaming services, even on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I'm not real savvy with it, but I have all the videos that I do, because I video on a platform called Riverside, and I upload them to YouTube. And those videos are all raw. I don't edit any of them, so it's just me and the person, or sometimes I do 2 people, but yes, all of them. Yeah. Test those breasts. Anybody else?
Yeah. We have a website, breast cancer website through my organization, Media Entertainment Services. And we want to, I'm just thinking that my team and I, which they will be here shortly, they want to agree that we need to meet with you and do a podcast with you.
Yeah, I think that.
Do that, so we'll talk about that.
I would love that. Thank you. We'll before I leave, we'll have to connect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in here who've had breast cancer, or who have known people who've had breast cancer? Look at all those hands in the room. 1 in 8 women. I don't remember the statistics for men. It's a lot lower, but it's there. And men need to be, and I know that sometimes they're like, I don't wanna tell people that I have breast cancer, but why? We need to tell people, and they need to keep, look at themselves in the mirror and check it, and don't have to necessarily do it on the first, just do it any day.
Is any of your participants on your podcast, are any of them under the age of 40?
Yes, quite a few survivors that I have interviewed were in their early 30s, maybe some were pregnant, some were after they were pregnant. So yes, and so the breast cancer diagnosis is women are younger and younger.
Yes.
And it's very astounding and it's scary. And so, yeah.
That's what we're facing with in Southern Nevada. A lot of young women get diagnosed with breast cancer. And some of them don't have any family history of it. It's just like, why me? I don't understand it.
That's another good point. Most women who get, most men and women who get breast cancer, it's not even in their family. So, which is even, so that's why if people say, oh, it's not in my family, I don't have to worry about it. That's not true.
Well, and based off of one of your last podcasts, that was the theme that I took away, is every one of your guests was saying, like, well, I didn't have a family history. And I talked to Kristen recently about, like, we need to change up how we communicate
Yes.
the risk factors.
Yes.
The first bulletin point is not family history, the first bulletin point is, I have breast
Yes.
tissue.
If you have breasts, you need to be on, it needs to be on your radar. Also, it doesn't have to be a lump. If you notice anything that looks different, that feels different, little zingers in your breast, I felt that. And I've always been really up on I've had 2 lumpectomies in the past. They were benign, so I've always made sure that I get my mammograms and ultrasounds every single year. But leading up to it, it was the spring, I was just about to retire. I remember driving along and I'd feel these like little burning sensations or zingers. And I'm like, huh, what's that? Well, it was breast cancer. So early detection is key. Do not ignore those. Early detection, early detection, early detection. Yeah.
So, when you're talking about the zingers, women get tender breasts when they're on their period.
Yes.
So then, how are we determining if we should be looking or going to see a doctor, or is this just like?
That's a super good question. Most people that I talk to suggest that you notice things after your menstrual cycle. So when you are deciding when you're going to feel your breasts and notice things, make sure that it's outside of the menstrual cycle. And it might not, and when you know what's happening usually on your menstrual cycle. So if it's something that happens every single month during that time, that might be an indicator that it might not be anything. But if you know how they say feel it on the first? Well, if your period's on the first, don't pay attention to that. Wait until your period is over and then do the check and make sure you're checking both sides. So if you feel something over here going, I don't know, really weird, do you have the same thing over here? Inverted nipples, do you have any discharge? Anything like that, those are indicators. If you're driving along without your period, and you feel these zingers periodically or burning sensations, listen to your intuition. What is that? Go and get them checked. My radiologist friend, I'm sorry, I'm going a little over.
I love it, please.
I know that I looked at the clock. My radiologist, I'm lucky because my friend is a radiologist who is the one who diagnosed me. He was the one that gave me the final diagnosis. He works at the breast center here in town. He was just at my retirement party having wine in my kitchen a few days prior. And so I had sent him, he wasn't working the day that I got the mammogram. But the other radiologist called me back, showed me what was going on. I gave him the results. He called me later that night and told me that it was a 95% chance more that it was breast cancer. And I realized that those zingers and that lump that I did feel, it's just that I didn't think it was any big deal because I always have lumpy breasts. I have dense breast tissue and that's just all, I always feel lumps. And so but my intuition, in hindsight, I was like, I should have known. I should have just gone in right then. But I was so excited to retire, and I didn't listen to myself. And especially in America, we are in the business of busyness. One time, somebody told me this one time, we're in the business of busyness. We're always busy, and we're never taking care of ourselves, and we need to. And because if I had not gone in and gotten that mammogram, and I was supposed to get it at the end of June, because insurance tells you have to wait 1 year plus 1 day. But I told them that I had a lump and some zingers. They said, oh, we need to move that up. So we moved it up by 3 weeks. And had I not gone, and they didn't even see it the year before. It hadn't even been a year and it was there. So it was aggressive. So if you are diagnosed at 0, like the lowest stage possible, people are living wonderful lives, and and there's the technology and the medicine and everything has been so much better than it used to be. But connecting yourself to Cancer Community Clubhouse, Nevada Cancer Coalition, I don't care who it is, just connect yourself, talk to people that aren't necessarily close to you, and listen to podcasts, test those breasts.
I definitely say that if somebody wasn't ready to talk about it, listening to the podcast, such
Yeah.
an easy
Yeah.
way for somebody to start.
Do you know that I have pulled people out of their fear? I've had a lot of people on my podcast who've never been on a podcast or really ever really even talked about it. And I think sometimes that comes from how you were raised. Sometimes in some families it's very hush hush, like I didn't know Aunt Sally had breast cancer. And it's because they didn't talk about it. And now we have lots of loudmouths like me out there talking about it, and I think it's so important. Even if you have one person that you talk to, whether it be a therapist or a friend who had breast cancer or just somebody who understands, it just makes it so much better to be able to talk to people and know what resources are out there that are sitting right there for you at these community organizations.
Thank you, Jamie.
You
for
are
being
so
a
welcome.
loudmouth.
Yes,
So Jamie had written a bio, and then I got distracted with the AV stuff and forgot to read her bio. Will you forgive me for,
Well, I
I
kinda
think you
just
covered
said
it.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
did.
you for pivoting.
I'm so used to saying it, so